My name is Thomas, and I never believed in the supernatural. That was before I spent a night inside the abandoned house on Hollow Street. The house had been empty for as long as anyone in town could remember, a relic of a forgotten era, its windows shattered, its walls choked by ivy. But inside, everything was eerily preserved, as if someone had just left. The furniture was untouched, the floors clean, and the air carried the faint scent of something, floral something, that had no right to exist in a house left abandoned for decades. I was there on a dare. My friends bet me I wouldn't last the night. I laughed it off what could possibly happen in an empty house. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and my phone, I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the scent of old wood and dust. My footsteps echoed eerily as I moved through the grand hallway, its walls lined with portraits of people whose eyes seemed to follow me. The silence was thick, pressing against my ears, making every small creak sound deafening. At the end of the hall stood a massive mirror, its glass warped with age. Something about it unsettled me. It was too clean, too untouched compared to the decay around it, as if it was waiting. Then I saw the movement, not in the room, but inside the mirror. I froze. My own reflection stood motionless, mirroring me exactly. But then, it didn't. I raised my hand. My reflection didn't. A slow, crawling dread filled my chest. I took a step back. The reflection took a step forward. Then it smiled. I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering. The reflection tilted its head, watching me with a grin too wide, too unnatural. The glass rippled like water, and before I could react, my hand reached out. I ran. The hallway stretched impossibly long, the door to the outside seeming farther away with every step. Shadows lengthened on the walls, moving in ways that had nothing to do with my own motion. The portraits along the hallway had changed, their faces twisted in silent screams. I don't remember getting out of the house. I don't remember the streets or the cold night air. I only remember the feeling of something just behind me, breathing down my neck. When I got home, I locked the door and collapsed onto my bed, my heart hammering in my chest. It was over. It had to be over. Then I heard it, a soft tapping from my bedroom mirror. And when I turned to look, my reflection was still smiling. But I wasn't. I tried to convince myself. It was just exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But the tapping continued every night. At first, soft and rhythmic, then growing more insistent. One night, I covered the mirror with a sheet. The tapping stopped. I felt relief for the first time since leaving that cursed house, until I woke up. The sheet was on the floor, and my reflection wasn't facing me anymore. It had turned, looking over its shoulder, as if something was behind it. Something in the darkness of the glass, moving, shifting. Then I heard the whisper, low, breathless, coming from the other side. Let me out. I smashed the mirror that night. Glass shards scattered across my room, reflecting countless fractured versions of myself. The whispering stopped. The tapping ended. I felt safe again, until I saw my phone screen. The front camera was open, and my reflection was still smiling. My name is Jacob, and I've always been fascinated by abandoned places. There's something eerie yet alluring about houses left to decay, their walls whispering secrets of the past. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found inside the Holloway Manor. The house had stood for over a century, its structure barely holding against time. The locals told stories of strange lights flickering in the windows, of muffled voices echoing from within, but no one dared to step inside. I, of course, took that as an invitation. I entered through the front door, which groaned under my touch. The air was thick with dust, the scent of rot and mildew clinging to every surface. The grand staircase stood before me, its wooden frame warped and splintered. A massive chandelier hung above, its crystals coated in cobwebs. As I shone my flashlight around, I noticed something odd. There was a second staircase. It was to the left of the main one, narrow, almost hidden within the wall, like an afterthought. The steps were pristine, untouched by dust or decay. It didn't belong. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore it. I started up the main staircase, but with each step, the air around me grew heavier, charged with something unseen. Then, the whispering began, faint, just at the edge of my hearing. I turned sharply, my flashlight flickering. The second staircase was closer now. I hadn't moved toward it, but it was there, inches away from where I stood. My breath caught in my throat. The whispering grew louder, more distinct. Words I couldn't understand, but somehow felt in my bones. Then I saw them, figures, shadowed shapes standing at the top of the second staircase. They weren't moving, but they were watching. A sudden chill crept up my spine. I bolted down the hallway, forcing myself to ignore whatever was behind me. Doors lined the corridor, some slightly open, others sealed shut, with rusted locks. My flashlight flickered again. Then the lights turned on. A deep, yellow glow filled the house, casting long, unnatural shadows. My heart pounded as I turned to look behind me. The second staircase was gone, but the figures, they were closer. A door at the end of the hall creaked open. I had no choice. I ran straight into the room, slamming the door shut behind me. The whispering stopped. I took a shaky breath and turned. The room was empty, except for a single, dusty mirror propped against the wall. And in its reflection, the staircase was still there. And so was IEXCEPT. My reflection wasn't moving. My name is Eric, and I have always been drawn to abandoned places. The thrill of the unknown, the history buried in dust-covered walls, it's an obsession. But I should have never stepped inside the house on Blackwood Lane. The house had been empty for over 50 years. No records of its last occupants. No history of who built it. It stood there, forgotten, its windows dark and hollow. The front door was locked tight, but a basement window had been shattered long ago. That's how I got in. Inside, the air was suffocating, thick with mold and something metallic. My footsteps echoed through the silence as I moved through the decaying rooms. The furniture was covered in tattered sheets, as if someone had left in a hurry, but planned to return. Then I found the door, a single wooden door at the end of the hallway, different from the others. It had no handle, only a rusted keyhole. Something about it felt wrong. The wood was unnaturally smooth, as if it had been replaced. The moment I touched it, I felt a deep, vibrating hum beneath my fingertips. A whisper just behind my ear. "Don't open it." I spun around. No one was there. My pulse pounded as I stepped back, but then I noticed something odd. On the floor, just beneath the door, a single, rusted key. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to leave it alone. But the curiosity, the obsession was too strong. I picked up the key and inserted it into the lock. A low click. The door swung open on its own, revealing a pitch-black room beyond. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. The walls were lined with deep scratches, as if someone or something had been clawing to get out. Then, a sound, breathing, shallow, ragged, coming from the corner of the room. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside, my heart hammering in my chest. A figure sat in the corner, hunched, trembling. Long, tangled hair covered its face. The scent of decay filled my nose. I should have left. I should have run. But then it moved. Slowly, it lifted its head. Two sunken eyes, black voids, locked onto mine. A smile stretched across its face, natural, too wide, revealing jagged teeth. Its body convulsed as it pushed itself up, limbs cracking and twisting at impossible angles. Then it spoke. You found me. The door behind me slammed shut. The flashlight died. The breathing was closer now, right next to my ear. The last thing I remember was the feeling of ice-cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. I woke up outside the house, sprawled on the sidewalk. My body ached, my clothes were torn, and my hands were covered in deep scratches. But the worst part, the key was still in my pocket, and the door in my apartment now has no handle. My name is Adam. I never should have entered that house. The abandoned mansion at the edge of town had always been the subject of whispers. Some claimed it was haunted. Others believed something far worse lurked inside. No one dared step foot past its rusted gate, except me. I was drawn to it not by curiosity, but by the dream. Every night for a week, I saw the same vision. A long, dimly lit hallway, peeling wallpaper. A door at the end, slightly ajar, and a voice calling my name. I had to see if it was real. The front door was locked, but the side window was broken. I climbed inside, landing on a thick layer of dust. The air was heavy, stagnant, carrying the scent of mold and something else, something sour. I turned on my flashlight and moved through the decaying house. Furniture sat untouched, draped in cobwebs. The floor creaked under my weight, the sound swallowed by the suffocating silence. The deeper I went, the more it felt like the house was watching me, breathing around me. Then I found the hallway, exactly like in my dream. The peeling wallpaper, the warped wooden floor, the door at the end, slightly open. My breath hitched. A part of me screamed to turn back, but that voice, low, distant, called my name again. I stepped forward. As I reached the door, my flashlight flickered. I pushed it open, revealing a small bedroom. A bed, a nightstand, a rocking chair facing the window, and then, movement. The chair rocked back and forth, slowly, then it stopped. I shone my flashlight on the chair, expecting to see dust and decay. Instead, I saw him, a man, or what was left of one. His skin was stretched, too thin over his bones. His hollow eyes locked onto mine. His lips parted, but no sound came out, just a slow, rattling breath. My body froze. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Then he stood. The chair tipped backward, crashing onto the floor. The man's mouth stretched open wider than humanly possible, his fingers twisting unnaturally as he reached toward me. The walls trembled, the air thickening with whispers and moans. The house came alive around me. I stumbled back, slamming into the doorframe. The man lunged. His fingers grazed my arm, ice cold and brittle like dried bone. My scream caught in my throat as I turned and ran. I don't remember how I got out. One moment I was inside, and the next I was outside, gasping for breath on the front lawn. The house loomed before me, silent and still, but the window to that room where the chair had been was open now, and he was standing there, watching me. I ran. I never went back. But the dreams, they haven't stopped. My name is Daniel, and I never believed in ghosts until the night I stepped into the abandoned house at the end of Ravens Hollow Road. The house had been empty for decades, its windows shattered, its walls covered in ivy. The town spoke of disappearances, shadows moving past the windows at night, and voices that echoed through the halls. I thought it was just another legend. I was wrong. I entered through the back door, which groaned on its hinges, as if warning. Me too turned back. Dust swirled in the beam of my flashlight, the air thick with the scent of decay. The silence was suffocating, heavy, as though the house itself was holding its breath. I took a cautious step forward, my footfalls muffled by layers of dust and debris. The first sign that something was wrong came when I reached the staircase. I saw footprints, fresh, distinct, leading up. Someone had been here before me or was still here. I followed them. Each step creaked beneath my weight. As I reached the top floor, I was met with a long, dark hallway. 5 doors, all slightly ajar. I hesitated, then chose the first room. It had once been a child's bedroom. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls. Stuffed animals sat and rotted, heaps on the floor. A crib stood in the corner, covered in a tattered sheet. And then, I heard it a soft lullaby, distant, echoing as if carried by the walls themselves. I turned sharply. No one was there. My pulse quickened as I backed out of the room and into the hallway. That's when I noticed it. The footprints I had followed up the stairs. They were gone. A slow creak sounded behind me. I spun around, my flashlight flickering. The door at the end of the hall, one I had not yet opened, was now wide open. A wave of cold air rushed past me, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else. Something rotten. I stepped forward, heart hammering. Inside, the room was empty, except for a single chair positioned in the center. On it sat a photograph, its edges curled with age. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a picture of me, taken from behind. Standing at the foot of the stairs, I dropped it and turned to run, but the hallway was different now. The doors had all closed, the wallpaper rippling like something was moving beneath it. The house groaned, the walls seeming to pulse, and then the whispers started. They were all around me, growing louder, overlapping, calling my name. My flashlight died completely, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling. A breath cold and damp brushed against my neck. "Leave," a voice rasped, but my feet were frozen. Then, the door at the end of the hall slammed shut, and the house erupted into screams. I don't remember running down the stairs. I don't remember how I got out. I only remember the silence when I finally reached the street, the house standing there as lifeless as before, as if nothing had happened. But as I turned to leave, I caught one last glimpse of the upstairs window. A figure stood there, watching me, and it looked just like me.